Hello everybody, and in this micro lecture we're going to talk about what is a brand. To understand where it fits, brands are normally associated with products, but they can think of them in a broader sense. We can think of brands as associated with companies, with organizations. Brands are well beyond what a product is. So what functions do a brand serve? What are brand associations? We're going to find out what are branding strategies for goods and services, and how do we assess brand equity. So what is a brand? A brand is a portfolio of qualities associated with a name. And we can think about this in many different ways, but you can probably think of some examples yourself. You think about a brand and its logo, and then you think about what's associated with it. We don't all see it the same way, but the organization is trying to create a consistency to the brand. So brands immediately invoke certain images. Brands have value beyond the benefits of the product. That's clearly true. And one of the most amazing companies to me is one that is not necessarily associated with a high degree of quality or value, but it's associated with certain things. And it was designed that way from its very beginning. So my example is, well, we all know what this is, right? You're driving down the road. If you see that on the side of the highway, you know what it is. And we all know that that's for McDonald's. McDonald's has done an amazing job of branding. In other words, they were looking for consistency to their name and to their everything that represents them, a consistency that everybody would recognize. And they've always done that. That's how they were created. Marketers can control some of the brand associations by product shape, packaging, that kind of thing. McDonald's certainly has with its golden arches, right? Logos, symbols, and colors, as I just mentioned, jingles and slogans. McDonald's has done many things around jingles and slogans, interestingly enough. They're all designed to support that brand. And then spokespeople, people that were involved with it. Some of you have identified that already, but you can talk about people who speak up a brand. And in today's digital world, could be people who we might call influencers, for example. Marketers should control what they can. You wish you could control everything. You can't. You can control some of what you do, and you have to be very careful about how you go about doing that. On the other hand, marketers do not control all associations, personal memories about the brands, things like that. But you know what? In today's digital world, the consumers never had a stronger voice. They can make or break a brand. They can either support the brand message or they can destroy it. That is a very different world we live in today as it applies to marketing. That's for sure. Brand name meaning is built over time through communications with customers. We typically will reinforce our brand consistently many, many times. That consistency of messaging and the brand are really, really important. Brand names and logos are ultimately become a shorthand for the way we communicate with our customers. So you can think of lots of examples, but we're going to stick with the McDonald's one, and we can think about those golden arches. What do they mean? It's who we are and what we look like. Brand colors and fonts visually engage the customers as well. We can think about the New York Times. We can think about Google. Google has an interesting presentation of their brand, which changes daily, which is kind of interesting if you go to do a search. But I'm going to go back to my example of McDonald's. We all know what that means. It's amazing if you live in North America and many other countries, by the way. You know what McDonald's is, and you know what it represents, the good or the bad, either way, but you know what it says. So customers benefit from branding. The whole idea behind McDonald's having this consistency of brand was an idea that you could go get a hamburger anywhere in the United States, and you would have a similar experience from one location to the next. That was a pretty big deal back, when it started back coming out of World War II in the late 40s and early 50s, because hamburger places were called hamburger joints. and they kind of had a little bit of a low quality image, and there were certain things associated with it that were not very positive. So McDonald's thought about the idea of this. Well, let's create it in a positive way, in that you'd have a consistency in the experience, and you know what to expect when you go to one. So that was their whole thing. It was all about the brand. So brands identify company ownership, yeah, but brands also allow for predictable quality, thus decreasing risk. That was the whole message behind McDonald's. They said, you know what? It doesn't matter which one you go to. The Big Mac you get at one place is going to taste like the Big Mac at another. You may not like the Big Mac. It doesn't really matter. It's predictable, and that predictability would really strengthen the brand. Brands make customer decision making easier because you know what to expect. So you're driving down the road and you see that McDonald's, those golden arches and stuff. You may not think it's the best thing to eat, but you know what? You know what you're going to get. Everything else is you're not sure what's going to happen, right? You know, you go to a good place, a bad place. You could take a long time, a short time. With McDonald's, the consistency of the brand was really important. Brands serve as status symbols. I'm not going to say McDonald's, I'll break away from my example here. If the TriStar of a Mercedes-Benz conveys a certain degree of status. So, they certainly have done that. Companies obviously also benefit from branding. Brands induce loyalty, repeat purchasing. I'll use my example of McDonald's again, and that we can talk about, I gotta say, this is just me personally, but when I go to a McDonald's, it's usually because I'm traveling. I'm driving a long distance, and I don't want to pull off to the side of the road and kind of like, gee, what am I going to get? I want to know what I'm going to get, so that consistency of experience is really important. Brands allow for premium prices. We can now break away from the McDonald's example, but if you can associate your brand, the brand with a really high degree of quality, and we see this many, many, many different times. We see it at the grocery store. We see it in lots of different places. But brands, if they're elevated in terms of value to the customer, it allows for higher prices, right? We know we're going to spend more money at Whole Foods, but we shop there anyway because we think that we're going to get very high quality products. Okay? Now, again, I'm not saying that's what it really is. I'm just saying that's how this is being built. Brands allow a single firm to pursue multiple targets, and that's really, really important as well. So, again, McDonald's, you think about McDonald's target market, who is it? Well, it's a lot broader than the one that we're exploring in our own marketing plan building. They're covering a lot of ground. So, that brand allows for consistency of messaging across multiple target markets. We think about brands as having some kind of an association attached to them. So there's some concrete product attributes. For example, we could talk about Toyota hybrids is achieving at least 40 miles per gallon, but they don't shy away from saying you get this kind of gas mileage out of your hybrid. Okay, so that's a really important thing to be able to say, and it's very concrete and it's very clear, and that's associated with the brand, the Toyota Prius, or whichever vehicle you want to choose. Abstract product benefits are you can save money. Well, the Prius also says, guess what? You don't have to fill up your gas tank nearly as much. That will save you a whole lot of money. That builds value into the brand. And abstract emotional benefits are you can feel good, but let's use that Prius example one step further and say a growing and clearly influential benefit that people are feeling today, especially younger people are feeling today, are sustainability and anything that has to do with improving the quality of the environment of the planet. And that makes us feel good in many ways. It makes us feel like it's a necessary thing to do, but it also makes us feel good. So if we look at that from a kind of a hierarchy standpoint, we think about the concrete attributes. Well, those are easy to communicate, but it's also really easy for competitors to copy. So they could say it's like, well, the Prius says it gets 40. You name the other hybrid car, and ours gets 45 miles per gallon. So we can use that as a discernible and measurable way to enhance our own brand at the expense of the other. There are as we talked about, there's abstract benefits, but benefits are abstract in general. They're harder to create and communicate, but they're also more meaningful. So one of really great example is Dawn, the dish soap. And people think about like, well, with dish soap? There's millions of them out there, right? It seems like there's lots of brands out there. But they've associated themselves with animal rescue, which is a very powerful emotional benefit that they've built around their brand. And it's really served them very, very well. Brands help customers achieve their ideal self. We can think about brands as being associated with who we are, and there's no question that there's such a thing as an association between brand and our own sense of identity. So lots of people, we are all guilty of it, and we've probably all done it at one point or another. But that's definitely a powerful thing. And brands also become the focal point of bonding through brand communities. So we associate with others who love our brand. Harley Davidson is a great example. I've worked with them before. Incredible organization. They have the most loyal customers I think I've ever seen. It's just amazing. And when you own a Harley, it's the motorcycle itself is one thing, but being part of the Harley community is another one. So it's embodied in something called the Harley Owners Group. It's embodied in a lot of other groups as well, but we'll just say with Harley Owners Group, it's called, and you want to say you're a HOG member, because you're part of the Harley Owners Group. So it's a pretty amazing thing. It's a very, very powerful brand, and it says a lot. Brands also have personalities. We can think of each one of us having a distinct personality. Specific information about the brand or holistic perceptions about the brand are what are captured within that. So, as an example, I'll just use of the examples that are illustrated here. Sincere. Well, shoot, you buy a box of Girl Scout cookies, not because they're the best cookies ever had, but you think that you're supporting a really positive and really great brand that's called Girl Scouts that has lots more attached to it than the product you're buying, the cookies, right? So when we experience brands as consumers, we think of it on very many levels, and we go back to our consumer behavior segment of this class. There's an affect element to the brand. There's an intellectual element to the brand and a behavioral element to the brand. And we can think about different brands, and they mean different things to different people. So all those things come into play, and you can think about where your brand is positioned as a result. So we talked a little bit about brand communities. Customers connect with like-minded customers. They have extreme attachments to brands. Apple certainly has done that. They've really built an amazing community of people who say, like, yeah, Apple, I live and die by Apple, Harley Davidson, as we mentioned. Marketers should try to capitalize and build on these communities as much as you possibly can. I've certainly done that in my marketing past, and really made a big effort to do it, because I think those things are the things that really matter in terms of propelling your brand and solidifying your brand in the minds of consumers. Okay, so that's our discussion about brands. If you have any questions, certainly let me know, and I'll be happy to talk to you.